Yesterday for me marked the first time where it really felt like Kevin Stefanski's job might be in serious jeopardy. So let me know in the comment section right now before we unpack everything. Should the Browns fire Kevin Stefanski? Watching this game yesterday, I became somewhat numb to the Browns being blown out and losing that I sort of lost sight of, wow, this was a little bit of a different type of loss than the previous 7 they suffered this year. This was a loss, I think, largely due to effort. And that was a eye-opening moment for myself where I go, wow, the Browns not just even trying in the second half of this game might be putting their head coach on the hot seat. This game marked an absolute turning point for me. This to me was the first time this year where it really looked like the Browns threw in the towel. And when that happens, I don't know how much longer your head coach is going to stick around for. Because honestly, asking right now, what head coach survives a performance like that on Sunday off the bye week against a bad Saints team? I mean, when the Browns lost before the bye to the Chargers, okay, 17 points at home. Again, not really great effort, but that's a good Chargers team. We just saw them beat the Bengals on Sunday Night Football and nearly charged their way to a loss. But this is a different type of loss, in my opinion. You're coming off the bye, so one would think you'd be as well rested as possible, and most importantly, as prepared as possible, right? Having a whole week to worry about your own issues, and then having a whole week to prepare for the Saints who come off a win in Week 10 against the Falcons. But it was the opposite. They came in so underprepared, lack of effort across the board, and now I'm at a point where I go, wait a minute, back up for a second. This is not an issue because the Browns are getting outmatched. The Saints didn't have a more talented roster. The Saints are missing their top 2 wide receivers, and they put up 35 points. This is not because the Saints came in with this loaded roster. No, if I'm Jimmy Haslam, I'm looking at this game going, I've got the highest paid roster in the NFL, and they just lost by 21 points to Darren fucking Rizzi? Who the hell is that? And they aren't even that talented of a team when it comes to their roster makeup with all the injuries New Orleans has suffered. So if we're not losing because our team is not talented enough, and we're losing because our team isn't trying because they've given up on the season, and this head coach can't keep this locker room motivated for the entire year, even at 2-7, then what the hell am I keeping the head coach for? It'd be one thing if, hey, the Browns got outmatched and that's why they lost. Okay, well, you keep the head coach because the team played hard for all 4 quarters and all 17 games, and you go into the offseason. You try to plug those roster holes in the draft and free agency. But if I'm Jimmy Haslam, I'm looking at this like we can plug all the roster holes we want. They're still going to lose to teams that are worse off than them when it comes to a roster comparison because they don't play hard in the second half, sloppy tackling, lack of motivation. That to me was an eye-opening moment of, wow, if I'm Jimmy Haslam, I'm looking at this through a whole new lens than the previous 7 losses. And now I'm looking at Kevin Stefanski in a whole new light. And that was when I went, uh-oh, Kevin Stefanski might really be on the hot seat. Because the first couple of losses, that's more or less just fans being frustrated, right? Talking heads like myself going, all right, well, when the team loses, what's the first course of action? Fire the coach. So let's play the hits. Let's talk about that, even if it's not likely. Well, when you're 2-8 and you lose by 21 points to a 3-win team on an interim head coach, we are in bounds for talking about this. And it's only going to get worse because look who's up next. The 8-2 AFC North leading Pittsburgh Steelers. This game might decide Kevin Stefanski's future in Cleveland. If the Browns come out at home and they get squashed, clowned, embarrassed by their rival Pittsburgh Steelers, Jimmy Haslam is going to look at the last 3 games and see 17-point loss, 21-point loss, and whatever happens on Thursday night, and maybe make a decision, This is not a team that's not talented enough because I've paid for a talented roster. This is a team that doesn't have any motivation to keep playing. And that right there falls on the coaching staff, and it starts at the very top. And the ultimate question, and the only person that we need to actually consider here is Jimmy Haslam. Is he fed up? Andrew Berry is not going to have a say really in firing. I mean, it's not going to be Andrew Berry's decision. This is a Jimmy Haslam decision. So he's really the only person in Cleveland right now that matters when it comes to Kevin Stefanski's future. And if he watches his team get smoked on Thursday Night Football at home and put together 3 straight games with lack of effort, that might be the nail in the coffin for Stefanski. So the next up, Mike Vrabel. And that might kind of be tied to Kevin Stefanski's axe. Now, before we get to that, make sure to subscribe to the channel. We're going to keep you guys informed with all the latest coaching rumors out there regarding Stefanski. So don't miss a single thing. We're 9 subscribers away from reaching 38,600 subs. We're marching to the big 4-0, so if you could help me out by clicking that sub button down below, I'm going to keep giving you guys Browns news, rumors, videos all year long, no matter how bad they play and perform on the field. Now, next up on the show, I want to talk about a move from Mike Vrabel potentially. But first, I do want to give a quick shout out to our sponsor, and that is Mando. Mando is a whole body deodorant safe to use anywhere on your body. I walk to work most days like I did this morning, and it's about a 30-minute walk, which in the Texas heat can cause me to work up a bit of a sweat. But when I use Mando in the morning, I come into the office pit stain free and not smelling like a used gym towel for producer Reed. Created by a doctor who saw firsthand how normal BO is being misdiagnosed and mistreated, it is clinically proven to block odor all day and control odor for up to 72 hours. Mando is offering new customers $5 off their starter pack at shopmando.com with promo code CHAT. Mando starter pack is perfect for new customers. It comes with a solid stick deodorant, cream tube deodorant, 2 free products of your choice like mini body wash and deodorant wipes, and free shipping. Luckily, I've got a discount code to help the dog pound out on my favorite smelling whole body deodorant on the market. Like I said, new customers get $5 off their starter pack with our exclusive code CHAT. That equates to over 40% off your starter pack when you use code CHAT at shopmando.com. That's shopmando.com. Use promo code CHAT. I put all that information in the comments and description of today's video. So let's switch gears a little bit, but stay on the same vein, and that is, could the Browns be maybe making a move for Mike Vrabel? So Tony Grossi, who I don't think is reporting anything, I don't think he is putting out a little bit of what he's hearing. I think he's just connecting the dots, and that's usually the job of a good beat reporters, to kind of get a little bit ahead of the story if you can kind of see the writing on the wall. In third person, methinks Browns nearing a decision on Mike Vrabel. Pittsburgh game will be huge for Kevin Stefanski. Life isn't fair. I agree that the Pittsburgh game is going to be huge for Stefanski. If the team loses, but they put together a better bounce-back effort and performance than they did in Week 11, then I could see Stefanski getting the rest of the year to show, hey, we had 2 bad weeks, and we corrected those mistakes. And I think he could be afforded that opportunity to correct those mistakes because of his resume with the Browns, right? For having 2 Coach of the Year award trophies in his closet, and for having this team reach the playoffs twice under his control. But if they put together a 3rd straight game, 2 of which come at home, and the last one being against the rival Steelers, where there is just lack of effort across the board, and it doesn't feel like this roster is playing hard for this coaching staff, then we might see a move to Vrabel, right? Where Jimmy Haslam goes, all right, I want to get ahead of it. And I've got Mike Vrabel in the building right now as a consultant. And I don't want to let Vrabel leave in the offseason for another head coaching job. And I just sat on my hands and let Stefanski continue to coach this team down the drain, because believe me, when you're 2-8 and the toughest part of your schedule lies ahead of you, now we're actually in deep, deep danger of a 2 or 3 win team. I mean, look at the remaining schedule for a quick moment here with me, and let's just try and count out the Browns' wins in the future. I want to say the Steelers won of these 2 games just because of hope, but that's not likely. The Broncos, by the way, that's going to get flexed on a Monday night, and that's a big thank you to the rest of the country, or from the rest of the country. But you got Steelers twice, the Broncos. I mean, the Broncos are an above 500 team. Steelers above 500. Chiefs above 500. Bengals on Thursday night. Please flex that as well. Dolphins is probably the easiest matchup here. At home in Week 17. That's tough for Miami to come up and play in Cleveland, but I'm not going to listen to the weather guys tell me, oh, the Browns are going to win because it's AFC North football. Do we not remember the Saints game a few years ago with the Browns playoff hopes hanging on by a thread, and the Saints beat the crap out of the Browns once again, this time in Cleveland? So, looking at the upcoming schedule, it's looking pretty grim for Stefanski to find 2 more wins. So if he ends the year with 3 wins, how many coaches survive 3 wins that aren't either a first-year head coach and they just want to give them another crack at it, or a coach that doesn't have a highly paid roster and feels like with better investment in my roster, I can turn this thing around? Nope, that's not something Stefanski can go to Haslam and say as a reason as to why they won 3 games. It won't be because of lack of spending. Nope, they did plenty of that. So when you look at those 2 legitimate excuses for holding on to your job, and those don't check out, heads are going to roll. And maybe Stefanski can get away with firing a bunch of coordinators, but he's already done that a couple of times. At some point, his head's going to be on the chopping block. Also, I think it's important to look ahead a little bit. Again, put your head in the head of Jimmy Haslam for a moment here. You got Mike Vrabel. We know how successful he was with the Tennessee Titans up until the end. And you're looking at the other head coaching openings on the horizon. I mean, the Jets and Saints have already fired their head coach. The Raiders may hold on to Antonio Pierce, but maybe not. The Browns will just toss in there. The Jags are likely going to move on from Doug Peterson. You got the Giants and the Bears who are also trending towards a potential head coaching change. So if you're Jimmy Haslam, and that's really the most important thing we have to look at here, is how desirable is the Browns head coaching job going to be compared to those other openings? If you're Mike Vrabel and you have your pick of those 7 teams to pick from, would you rather go coach Caleb Williams in Chicago, or go and take on this dumpster fire that is Deshaun Watson's contract and an aging Browns roster that may have missed their window? You're probably thinking Caleb Williams in Chicago, or the New York Giants with a top 3 draft pick similar to the Browns or just like the Browns, but maybe they have the green light to go draft a quarterback, whereas maybe the Browns are going to be handcuffed to Watson for another season. Or maybe he can go to the Giants where they can actually pick Shedeur Sanders because Deion will greenlight that. But maybe Deion's not going to greenlight that for the Cleveland Browns. If you're Haslam and you fire Stefanski to promote Vrabel, you might give yourself a head start compared to the rest of the league in terms of getting what might be the number 1 or the number 2 head coaching candidate in the next cycle and able to retain him, almost somewhat like you're handcuffing him because made him the interim. Things might go well, and he might decide, you know what, let's keep it right here. But if you're Vrabel and they don't ever make the move to promote you to head coach, and maybe you're thinking, well, I could do a whole lot of better job than right now what Kevin Stefanski's doing, and then he gets the opportunity to interview elsewhere, he may decide to pack his bags and leave. So do you want to switch to Vrabel right now? Give me a 1 for switch or give me a 2 for stay. I think that Vrabel being on this coaching staff, even though it's probably a good idea in the moment for Stefanski to bring in some good football minds, it might be the undoing of Stefanski because Haslam might be so paranoid that if he doesn't promote Vrabel now, he'll never get the chance to hire him because Vrabel's going to pick another team with a better situation than the Cleveland Browns. Before we sign off, I just want to show some love to the Brown and Orange Club. Thank you guys so much for going above and beyond to support the channel through good and bad times, and right now it's mostly bad times. I really appreciate you guys for hanging out with us during our watch parties on Sunday, never wavering and always rooting on this squad. So thank you from the bottom of my heart for always being here with me every single watch party and watching this team put up stinkers, but just keeping your eyes open and watching through the pain. That's going to do it for us on today's episode. Hit us up over on Instagram, by the way, Browns Report IG. We'll keep you guys informed and entertained all year long.